Welcome to the Honest Designers Show, your transparent look into life as a modern designer. My name's Tom Ross and I'm the founder at designcuts.com, and this week I'm joined by my fellow Brit and hand lettering expert Ian Barnard, American retro design expert Dustin Lee, and the incredibly talented South African illustrator Lisa Glantz. Today we are joined by a very dear listener. We're joined by Alyssa, who I believe we answered Alyssa's question last week or a couple of weeks ago on the show. But Alyssa, we just wanted to say, without further ado, let's get into the show, and a warm welcome. Thanks for joining us.
Hi, Alyssa.
Welcome.
Thanks for having me.
So if you've been listening to the show, which hopefully you have been, dear listeners, then hopefully you caught the episode where we responded to Alyssa's question. And just for a bit of a reminder, Alyssa had been going through somewhat of a hard time with juggling, family commitments and, some fairly difficult things, but, really needing that creative outlet. So we jumped on with Alyssa as promised in that episode before recording today. And we were having quite a nice chat. And then I just kind of said, well, why don't we just hit record and keep on talking, because Alyssa is awesome. So why not jump on the show? So she's here with us now. Before we even jump in, Ian, I think you've got Alyssa's Instagram lined up. Let's try and blow that up. So everyone needs to go follow Alyssa because she's amazing.
Yeah. I just posted this self. Oh no, I can't get the timing right. Because when people were listening to this, I would have posted it whenever.
Already.
Cool.
Yeah.
So what's Alyssa's handle?
Alyssa's handle is it's Panda Bears by Alyssa.
Okay, and Alyssa is spelled Alyssa. So Panda Bears by Alyssa. Stop the podcast, pause it for a second, and go and follow Panda Bears by Alyssa, because she's got some really lovely work. So you should check it out and leave us some nice comments and support.
What we can do, we can tag her into the Honest Designers post that goes on Instagram.
Good idea.
If you can't find it.
Nice. So Alyssa, take it away. I know we just had quite a good chat for like 30 minutes. Was there anything following on from that you kind of wanted to know or that you were thinking about?
Well, I kind of wanted to dig in more to this idea that Dustin had brought up about like the books. So, I'll try and summarize this as best I can. So you were talking about how you can have sort of like categories or like discussions of things in little pieces. So you were saying like if somebody writes a book about burritos, they don't have to be like the burrito guy forever. Like they write a book about burritos and then you can sort of like move on to the next topic. And for me personally, that's very freeing because I have like a pretty short attention span when it comes to something. So the idea that I've had to like stick to one specific category or style or something like that forever is very like overwhelming and kind of paralyzing.
Mm-hmm. And we talked as well about the power of packaging something up to make it shareable, and you alluded quite rightly to Lauren Holmes' mini projects that she's done.
Mm-hmm.
So we were toying with some of the ideas of could you take your experiences and package them up in a way where people, felt excited to share them or could share them with people they thought it would resonate with, and how that will often get much more traction than just another Instagram post or something of that nature. And I think that kind of fits with Dustin's point about the books because it gives an umbrella over the whole lot of it. It gives that overall package, but you can still have the variety within each piece of content within that, so you won't get bored or constrained. Does that kind of ring true, or do you think, what if I committed to a series that had no overriding theme, I'd feel like I was really boxed in by that?
No, I have the opposite problem. I have a really hard time picking one thing to focus on. So much so that like for a while I wouldn't tell people like what I was working on because I'd be afraid the next time I had to tell them about it, it would be something different. But at the same time, I think the accountability is good. Like, if I can pick a topic and then commit to that and have some accountability, like, okay, this is what I'm going to do for a month. that's really powerful. And it has the through line, like you said, like people will understand what the context around it is. So I feel like a lot of times on Instagram, you just find like a one-off post, but then you don't really know what it means. Or sometimes you find a one-off post and you go to somebody's like profile and you're like, oh, well, that doesn't really, nothing else they do is connected to that.
Fits.
So like that doesn't really make sense to me. Which is probably like what my Instagram looks like right about now, because I jump around a lot. But
which is normal, though.
Yeah, right. I think the idea of having one theme that you commit to for like a short period of time is going to be really helpful.
Yeah, it helps train the brain in terms of doing that.
I feel like our identities are so tied into the things that we do that we say, oh man, I can't do, like, if I do this thing on my Instagram, then that's what I am forever. And I like, do any of you guys secretly have, like, you know how people like make Twitter accounts with names and then like they'll go use it to like bash on politicians and like give their opinions on things and be like, that movie was so dumb, you know? Like maybe like Lisa's is like Secret Kitty 552, you know? Like
that sounds wrong on many levels.
like, first of all, if you're listening and you do have one of those accounts, like hit us up, like hit me up, hit us up, and like and let us know that just with a yes. Because I feel like that would be so nice to be able to do. Like if I could do that, like wouldn't that make it so much easier? I'd be like, yeah, I am going to show how to make homemade burritos for like a month because guess what? You don't know who I am.
Dustin, I agree with you because like I was like, oh, maybe I could do like a online Banksy where you just like you're unknown and you're doing like you have like a channel where it's completely experimental and you just do what you want that doesn't affect, you know, because the thing is, the good thing about having, you know, I have a jump around personality, but I try and keep it all underneath the umbrella of lettering. But I'd love to have some sort of way of outletting other creative things that may not be in line with what I'm doing. And, you know, maybe being like, you know, sort of like having something where people don't know it's you, but you can just be free to, just in case. The thing is, like,
but even if it is you, like Lauren Hom, her mini projects were exactly that, and she didn't have to be faceless or a stranger to do that. And you've got like Jack, the guy behind Patreon. He was in this awesome band and had that as an outlet. So I don't think people find it that weird these days. If it was like, well, Ian Barnard is like, you know, doing a synth band on the side of his lettering work, and a portion of your audience are going to follow that. The thing is,
I come from the point of view of what would I expect. Like, I like a bit of personality, maybe the person posting a few of themselves, maybe their kids, but not all the time, or they're at a gig and they're posting about that. I want to know about, I follow some people because I want to know just about the thing that they're doing. If they started posting loads of, I think Lauren does a great job of just doing it every so often. Like her crown of edible things, of cakes, is the same color scheme. It works well with her personality inside it, and it's not all the time. It's just once every so often. And so, you know, then that becomes sort of like having to like shoehorn it in the terms of like trying to make it fit in there. Whereas you could just have something where you're anonymous and you don't have to worry about being on brand. You can just, today I'm going to make a burrito, like you say.
Yeah, because once you put it under your name, there's like a perpetuating pressure. Whoa, that doesn't sound like it should be a phrase. But
like
there's like this pressure. Like I had done that 100 days of drawing on my personal Instagram. Okay, so now I got like around 4,000 followers. Like not a ton, but like enough where like I'm about to do like another 100-day thing. And I'm like, oh man, this isn't really illustration again. What if I alienate all these people? And then you're kind of like, man, I wish I did have a secret account so I could do this and not like alienate people. Plus, like, come on, don't you guys all have like 10 accounts where you hype yourself, like your own hype man? You know, like you go to your main account and you're like, that's a great idea, great work, great advice, Tom.
Yeah, it's like Brian Barnard in the comments.
Yeah, 5-star review of those brushes on.
Yeah, how do you think we got like a few hundred 5-star reviews on this podcast? That's how, guys.
Exactly, because Ian has 499
ultra egos,
anonymous accounts,
fake mustache, and the works.
But hey, really quick, honestly though, do any of you guys have anonymous accounts that you use for different things?
Yes.
No.
I've got one. Okay, this is how bad I am. I've got a Shutterstock artist account. I thought, okay, that's going to be my outlet. I'm going to be doing stuff that's like not my brand, experimenting, doing subject matter that has got nothing to do with the stuff that I do now. And I was going at it for about 3-4 months, and I lost interest.
And that's the thing, isn't it? Because then you don't have to worry about it. You can just whatever.
And until this moment, no one knew, but now thousands of people do.
And we've been trashing it every week on the show.
It's like the wheels fall off the car, you put it on the side of the road, and you just walk away.
Exactly. That's the thing. I wanted that freedom to decide if this is really sucky, then I can walk away and it's going to have no impact on my business or my brand or anything. And it really was just a creative outlet to try, different techniques. But I even sucked at that. So
no, I like it. It's honest. I mean, aren't we such a bunch of chatterboxes? Like Alyssa said about one sentence and then sat there for 10 minutes being like, okay. So Alyssa, what else can we discuss for you? Should we make this the new format? We just get a listener on and they just give us a prompt and then we talk at them for 30 minutes.
That'll help.
Enough about us. What do you think about us?
And then we're ending it without saying, have we answered your questions? Like, just think
one
we have.
thing, so I listened to the episode where you answered my question, and I got a lot out of it, but like one thing that resonated with me a lot is just the idea of like doing whatever you can in like the space that you have. So I struggle a lot with not, like, if something doesn't feel finished, I don't want people to see it. But at the same time, like I had told you earlier, when I wasn't being able to make artwork, like when I had to do a lot more for my daughter and she was taking up like, just feeding her was taking like 8 hours a day, that sort of thing. The only thing I had time to do was write, which at the time I didn't really connect at all to my artwork. And just the way that you guys were talking about it sort of like reframed that whole thing for me, because at the same time, like I was still actually creating something, and now I have something to draw from now that I do have a little bit more time to create artwork. So, I mean, I think that's one thing to keep in context in all of this, like just drawing something on a paper even doesn't have to be the creation that you do at any given time. Like there's all sorts of different medium that you can get into. And even you said it, I'm like, I should have made some recordings or something where I didn't even have to write it down. I just could have like done like a little video of me.
I think I got an idea. I'm intrigued if you like it or not. So it was a trend like a few years back where someone would take a photo of themselves every day and then you'd see them over a time-lapse video age in like a minute, and it was really eerie. Yeah. This trend led to a guy called John Wheatley, who I knew back in the day a bit, starting a site called Daily Booth, if anyone remembers that. And the idea was it was like a social network where you just had to take a photo of yourself every day with a one sentence caption, and then it would automatically turn that into an ever expanding video of your life. You could potentially do that as a lower time commitment challenge than writing a big article or something like that, where you could force yourself to use concision to explain your day, and you could still do it in such a well-written, poetic, emotionally resonant way in like 1 to 3 sentences. And you could do a super simple, quick, but beautiful accompanying illustration. And then if that became your Lauren Hom mini project, you could have a 1-page, simplest website ever, where there are little plugins and add-ons where you can just have like a PDF type, slideshow thing, like you see on LinkedIn and sites like that. So when someone goes to the site, they get day one, but they just have to keep clicking that arrow and it will just cycle through. And so it's essentially the story of your life, but done in the quickest possible creative outlet way each day. But it becomes an ever growing like flick book on this website and your social media pages.
Yeah, I really like that idea. I actually have a journal that I think my sister-in-law gave to me a few years ago, and I lost it for a while, but it was like a 1-sentence description of your day basically, and there's 5 years in the book, and so you're just supposed to write like 1 sentence throughout the book, and being able to expand on that. I mean, that's like essentially this idea, which is so simple, but I like, why did nobody ever come up with this?
Well, it's amazingly nostalgic to go, I'd
Right.
imagine, and read that book, but it's even more addictive to just keep clicking one button. So if it's that
Absolutely.
arrow, you get lost in it, right? You just keep going through. I think that could be really interesting.
I find myself like digging through people's even like Instagram, like not so much art, but like influencers, you know, and people sort of like that in that sphere that are like telling a story, you know, and then you like catch one detail and then you have to dig through their whole feed to like figure out what it means, you know, because it's just like one little thing that they say. So the idea that you have like a chain throughout there, that's very clever. I like that.
So I've had friends, there's an app that takes a 1-second video.
Mm-hmm.
It's like a modern incarnation of the Daily Booth thing. And you end up getting like a 3-4 minute video over the course of like, you know, a year or more.
Mm-hmm.
And it was really interesting to see when people really kept it up and did it no matter what. They had days where it'd be like, what? Like just a second of them at a festival or something with friends having the best time. But then
Right.
2 months later, it would be like their parent died. And it was just them at a funeral looking like tears in their eyes. And when you see it sped up like that, it's almost like a visceral, emotional jolt to your nervous system where you're like, oh my God, I feel like I feel like I've witnessed someone's life or a year of their life, but in a minute, and I've really somehow soaked up the emotion. It's like you have this emotional roller coaster reaction as you watch it. And so something like that, but illustrated in hand lettered form, perhaps could be interesting.
It's interesting because I've always had this idea that like my story is not that interesting, or like whatever I have to say is not that interesting, which I find fascinating because I follow and read stories from all kinds of people that like I don't know, that aren't doing anything particularly interesting at like any given time. But yet I find myself like, you know, going down the rabbit hole of like trying to figure out everything that's happening, you know, in the last month.
Well, there's something interesting. It doesn't need to be miraculously crazy,
right?
But
well,
they might have a dry sense of humor, or they might have a unique outlook on the world, or something.
Right. I mean, I think people's stories are just innately interesting to a degree, as long as you're being honest, and like opening about what's happening in your life. And I think I know I take that for granted, at least for myself, a lot.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
I mean, I think that's why I think that the television producers, when they realized that people would actually watch reality television, it was like hitting a gold mine. You realized, oh, we don't need to pay for sets. We don't have to pay for actors. We don't have to pay for script writers. We don't have to pay for anything. You mean we can just put cameras into a house and let people just like have their random daily drama, and people will watch that. And I mean, at its worst, it's horrible, right? But like a lot of times, it's really good. Like I think people's lives are infinitely fascinating.
But that's because they're honest.
Most cases.
You know, people like the truth.
People can relate.
But then they get like you get like even further on from that, where like in our country, I don't know if you get it, your country, we have people watching TV watching other people. So it's like continuation, and like, you know, watching other people. And he's like, why is that interesting?
I don't understand.
But sometimes it's just the person. Everything I think is driven by personality, because like there's like YouTube channels that I don't have an interest in the actual like focus of the channel
subject,
but I do resonate with the person who's doing it. You know, their personality, the way they bring it over. They make their subject interesting because of their personality, rather than it being like, oh, I'm focusing on that and I'm going to watch the person. There's like channels that are like I don't like watching, which is something I want to focus on, and then sort of the opposite way around. So it's definitely personality driven, and like, you know, the thing is, it's being okay that there are going to be people who love your personality, and there are people going to hate your personality, and that's okay, because you're not a one size fits all. But it's getting that content out to enough people so they find you. Those people who like your personality find you, and that's, you know, like we said before about consistency and lots of content.
Well, I think everybody's going to love you, Ian. Sorry.
There's someone on YouTube and points to whoever of you knows their name, because I know one of you will. They wear makeup. They do makeup tutorials and different things, and they're always on the front page of YouTube. And I don't know what like the politically correct way to say this. I don't know if it's a guy that puts makeup on or
Jeffree
they
Star. Do you mean
like
put
James-
makeup, a they
No,
that puts makeup on?
Do you mean like James Charles or whatever it is?
Jeffree Star.
I think so. They made a line like there was a cosmetic plastic thing for cosmetics, and some big company they felt copied it.
Yeah.
And I started watching the video by accident, like it just came on, and they start talking about this cosmetic, and I was like, "That's not cool." It does look the same. Those triangle shapes look the same on that cosmetic box as the other one. That's messed up. And I didn't even understand what it was about, but I felt for them. I watched it for like 20 minutes.
Now he's binge watched the whole.
Because you
I did think your
you still
highlight
understand
was
it's messed
looking
up. You're
incredible
like,
today,
preach.
my friend. You've been practicing.
But you have that too, because I'm like, yeah, that happened to me too with the thing that I saw. Someone did it and it had the same stuff.
Yeah.
Yeah, screw
Yeah,
the
you can
nasty
relate.
people.
Mm.
Alyssa, what are you thinking over there? Apart from what have I signed up for here?
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, this is sort of a shift in gears, but the last year or so, most of my writing and most of the artwork and that sort of stuff that I do is like really, really personal, but it's not just about me. It's about, like my daughter and my family. And I've always felt like a little bit uncomfortable with that. Like to some degree, I want to share her with a lot of people just like for the advocacy portion, so that like people understand like, what kids with disabilities have to go through and that sort of thing.
Mm.
But at the same time, like where does the line when like you start to go from advocacy to like exploiting for content? Like, is there a line there? And where does that start to get sticky?
I think if you start charging $5 for people to have a photo of you and your family, that might be exploitative.
Yeah.
But
Right.
like the line really is, I think, from you as a parent, and there is no line. There's a gray area, and there's clearly wrong and clearly right. But I think if it feels yucky and it feels exploitative, I'm sure you wouldn't do that to your family anyway because you're a nice person.
Mhm.
If it feels like you're sharing and it's cathartic and it's not an invasion of her privacy and it's you sharing a personal moment and writing about it or doing another illustration about it, it's not you shoving a camera in her face and trying to make her an internet star for your own personal gain.
Right. I mean, because some of it is like I talk a lot about her medical history, and part of the reason I do that is because she has like an incredibly rare genetic disease that there is like no research for. I mean, there's like a few hundred families in the world that like have it, right? Have a kid with that right now. And they pretty much only have kids because they don't tend to live that long. And, this is a specific disease to her that like not a lot of people have. But at the same time, there's all these other like orphan diseases like hers that like not a ton of people have. Like maybe they have more issues with it. Maybe they have fewer, but like diseases that people never even think about. So,
Yeah.
I want to talk to people a lot about it because I want them to understand, like, this is the disease. This is what it means. Like, this is why you should think about it. This is where you can go if you want to, like, learn more or whatever. But at the same time, it's
I think that sounds like a beautiful thing, though.
Yeah.
It does. It sounds like an invaluable resource for people who are probably feel completely and utterly lost and unsupported. I mean, I think it's amazing.
Yeah.
Definitely.
Yeah. I mean, I struggle with that. Like, I think it's good too, but I'm also like, I'm giving out like a lot of medical history for her, but at the same time, I feel like it's important for context because otherwise, like, everybody knows what cancer is for the most part, right? Like,
Yeah.
you sort of understand like how that affects your body. I don't have to explain to anyone like what cancer does to a person, really. But I do have to walk through like every single step for what my daughter's disease.
I get what you're saying. I think you're coming from an area of like your own child you want to protect.
Right.
Yeah.
Like, I'll share my own daughters online every so often. I'll share a picture of them and you feel like this is their life, not my life. How much do I have the right to disclose about them when they're so young?
Right.
I get it. It feels like a very weighty decision.
But what I was going to say is that I'm sure the great thing about being a mom is you probably have super strong instincts about protecting your loved one. So if you can just constantly, always double check with yourself about that, the intention and how you feel about it, I think you'll be fine. I think you'll know what feels right, and and what feels wrong.
Mm-hmm.
Good point.
Yeah, if I'll put it this way, if to use a metaphor, your family are the tigers and you're Joe Exotic, you're doing it wrong. Because I just finished binging that series and it was super messed up what he did to those tigers.
I'm glad I didn't watch that.
Dude, it's 10:40 in the morning, and that's the second conversation that I've had about Joe Exotic today.
It's so nuts.
Oh my god! I tried to watch it, and I got through one episode, and it was too sad for me. I was like, no.
Oh, it gets much worse.
Oh no!
Carol Baskin.
Do it.
Okay, let's change the topic. Quick.
All right. So, Alyssa, maybe if you had one or two final questions or thoughts, we'd love to help. And then I know, you need to spend time with your family as they're getting up.
Yeah. So, coming back to this time frame idea, do you think there's any length of time for doing a project? If you're a person who likes to move to things quickly, is there roughly a certain period of time that you would suggest people stick to a project for?
Dustin?
I don't know. I'm still doing retro supply. That started thinking I was doing it for a couple weeks.
But one of these sprints.
8 years.
All these challenges.
I guess as long as you as long as you think you can get done. I think 100 days was so good. I feel like that was such a solid amount of time to do something.
Yeah.
And then by then if it's going to take off for you or not, and you can stop or continue. Yeah. And it's just hard enough that you
Yes. Yeah, but I do think putting a kind of cap just initially, and if you want to go beyond it, that's great. But I think putting a set date or set amount or set time or whatever is a good idea, because if you just kind of going every day with no end goal, you may not be as committed. But as Dustin said, you want to put something that feels a little unachievable, just so that it is a little bit difficult, so that you can feel what that feels like and whether it's worth continuing once it's over.
Okay, so I just found something for 99 pence, which is about $1.20. You can get 100, as in the number, not the word, 100daysofparenting.com. Boom.
Oh.
But you know what I mean.
I thought Tom was going to advertise his course or something. For just
there's your exploiter, and I'm sure, Alyssa, not to put words in your mouth, but you would say Tom is a fantastic human being, and everyone should buy from him immediately. Isn't that right, Alyssa?
Sure.
Cool. Thank you for coming and joining us on the show. No, so do you see how 100-day sprint, you could brand it up in so many different ways,
right?
Where that becomes something people can buy into. It's I'm going to get an insight into this, this person's world for that period of time.
Mm-hmm. Or you could do it as a resource for those who want to try and, because when you're in the mix of all-consuming parenting, even if when you've when the child has just been brought into life, it's all quite consuming, especially when it's first off. It's great having that avenue of something else to do while all you can talk about is all about just nappies for the first few weeks or the first few months. And it's
that's diapers for all the Americans.
Diapers. And it might be something where you're okay, I'm in amongst all this. How can I do a challenge at the same point to keep me sort of sane, in terms of, because you're not really going out because, it's so that the baby's so young, and how can I do something creative, or how can I do some sort of challenge to help me with that part of my creativeness that will, give me something to do during the day when I'm feeling a bit low because I'm so tired because the baby's not sleeping, or, that. So it might be a two-strand thing where it's not only just giving of what your knowledge is of what you're doing and your child's condition, but also helping others to do their own thing in their own place as well. Sort of hand holding. And I suppose, you doing the challenge can give you all sorts of insight of what comes up while you're trying to do that, because there's one thing doing a challenge when you're just a single person, and then there's another challenge when you're trying to be a parent of someone who needs you, and how you juggle that. And no one knows that until they've been through it. And people want to know what those challenges are and stuff like that.
And you know what? Worst case scenario, hardly anyone pays attention to it, but you learn a tremendous amount about yourself. You learn to build consistent habits. You develop and progress your creative talents. You get that creative outlet. You have something you can look back on, hopefully proudly, and have a degree of nostalgia. You've got a posterity to it in that you've documented your life for that period. So all these positives, that's worst case scenario.
Yeah.
Right?
And you're also honoring the struggles that you're going through, which I think a lot of women are so bad at allowing themselves to feel that. I also wanted just to speak to you about, how you were saying earlier on that you're not sure, why would anybody want to hear what you have to say, and I think the fact that you are going through something so difficult, don't underestimate the fact that you've already been doing it for a year, almost 2 years now. So you already, so you already know so much that new moms don't know. So don't underestimate that, because you can offer so much insight into stuff where they're feeling lost. So you've got to how do I say, you got to trust that you can offer that, because you can definitely offer help out there for sure. Don't underestimate that.
Because I see with my wife being a speech therapist, if my children had problems with speech, I wouldn't know that they got problems with speech. I wouldn't know where to go to get help with kids that had problems with speech.
Yeah,
it's only because she's in that she knows. And because she's been in it so long, she takes that for granted. But then, she comes up with a parent, a lot of the times we're parents in the schoolyard just chatting. And oh, well, Henry, he's only saying 2 words at the moment. And I'd be like, well, is that good or bad? Or I don't know. And where she would know what to do, she would know where to point them in the right direction. Even that, she doesn't really point it to herself, but just to where you can get help, and where you can get help from the government, and where you can help, all these things that as a parent you just don't know. Because parenting is one of those things that it's you can't go to school in it, in terms of you can read books and you can get information, but once you're in it, it's a completely, I'm not prepared for this. There's things come up.
It's like content relativity. We're building our first vegetable garden out in the country, and we have to put up 6 to 8 foot tall fences around the garden because we have deer, and deer will jump these fences, legit jump fences 8 feet tall to get in the garden and eat your snacks, eat your veggies, right? So if I was at a party and I was like, hey, I want to tell you about 8 foot fences and about how to keep deers out from eating the veggies, people would be like, that's so boring. But there's a relativity to it, right? When I'm YouTubing that and I'm looking for well, how far in the ground do I put the post? Dude, I'm hanging on this person's every word. They're not an expert. Absolutely. They don't have a degree in deer garden vegetable fences. But I'm hanging on. That's such a good example, dude. Yeah. Tell me a link. Give me a link to where to get that. How deep you putting that? Oh, that's interesting. Wait, what about the how do you know the deer won't jump it? It's so boring until you're building that fence, right?
I literally want a video series. I want Netflix commission you to do a series of, Dustin's fence. And it's just this anticipation. Will the deer jump over it? Will it not by the end of the program?
I can see it now. Dustin Exotic.
You should do the 1 second a day of your garden. And wait and see if you get one with a deer.
Yeah.
Honestly, in Instagram stories, just little clips, I'm down here, we're waiting for the deer, see what they're going to do, and
I'm picturing, that scene in The Simpsons where Homer's trying to construct the barbecue, and he holds up the image of it. But you don't realize it's an image, and he's like, that's a mighty fine looking barbecue, and then you see it's a bit of paper he drops, and he's like, why does mine look like that? Le Grill, what the hell is that?
I feel like my garden fence is going to be like that cooking show where they try to cook the beautiful cake and it ends up looking like a weird misshapen like thing. Like I'm going to end up getting angry and like throwing stuff and like screaming out in the country across the mountainside, and then it'll just be like a couple poles with like some like chicken wire
A
wrapped
few
around it.
cabbages lying.
Like it could just become like, there's like film Kramer versus Kramer or whatever. It'd be like Dustin versus deer. It'd be like, this
exactly.
movie poster of a deer and Dustin, and they're like looking
Face
locked
off.
eyes.
Nicolas Cage.
But though, no one cares about that though, right? Until right before you're making your vegetable garden, and all of a sudden you're like, this is the most interesting thing in the world. Keep talking.
I mean, it's been a joy chatting with Alyssa, but I'll be honest, if this happens, this is going to be the best thing that's ever come out of this show. If you start really enthusiastically, like, well, hey, everyone, welcome to Dustin's Green Fingers, my new series. And then you'll just slowly lose your mind. Be like, why won't you work?
What if I'm like the Michelangelo of deer fences? Like, what if I was? Like,
I hope you are. I hope you are.
This might be my Sistine Chapel. You don't know.
Alyssa, on that bizarre tangent, have you got any closing thoughts or questions?
Most horrible transition ever.
No.
Yeah, it's like, please don't ever invite me on the show again.
Yeah.
No, I don't think I have any more questions at this point. Like, you covered a lot the last episode, and we've talked a lot here. I just want to say thank you. Like, I so appreciate all of the encouragement and the fact that you had me here at all. Like, I think people who are feeling down and like feeling overwhelmed and feeling like they can't do artwork, as much as anything, they just need someone to tell them, like, you can do it. Like, you have the freedom to do it. You have the time to do it, even if it's like just little bits. And any kind of creation counts, like that.
Oh, yes.
To me has been super helpful and super encouraging. And it's incredible that you guys took an hour and a half out of your day to do that for me. Well, 2 hours if you count like last episode
It's
too.
the most productive point of my day.
Yeah. So no, I just really, really appreciate it.
Well, we really appreciate
Pleasure.
you, and thank you so much for coming on and your time today. And just listen back to what Alyssa just said, all that nice stuff, because invariably we get all these amazing reviews, and then you'll get like very sporadic 1-star reviews where it'll be like, why didn't you let Alyssa talk more? And it's like, because we're not interviewing her, we're inviting her on to be part of the gang today and be part of the inane chatter that happens on the show, people. And I hope it cheered you up, Alyssa.
We'll also get Lisa's fan club going, you're really nice, Alyssa, but why are you so horrible to Lisa?
Yes.
I feel like
question.
Lisa is, Alyssa's awesome. Lisa is like Meg on Family Guy. It's like, shut up, Meg.
I don't know that program. You guys watch way too much TV.
Tom gives this impression he does loads of work, but he's actually just binging Netflix all the time.
I can see that.
At least I'm not watching, Mr. Fence Slayer 2020 on YouTube like Dustin. Sounds like
Hey,
the worst
man, gotta
YouTube show
prepare
ever.
in these uncertain times. I gotta have a vegetable garden, and I can't have a deer eating it.
Absolutely.
I literally watched 10 minutes where a guy, this is the video title, look what happens when you put a boxing bag in the woods with some rams. And there's just these 2 rams. Just
Glad you're filling your day.
I know, it's just this hanging boxing bag with 2 rams. And they're just like, ugh, they start butting it, and like it swings, and they're like that. I watched 10
I
minutes.
saw one like that with it. It was with cats, and they're like, what happens if you put saran wrap in front of a doorway with cats? I was like, I got to see how this turns out.
Yeah. He's like, I never asked that question, but now I want to know the answer.
I would say we've been, we get thousands of people listening to the podcast each week, which we're incredibly grateful for. It is also on the Design Cuts YouTube page, and the views are not where we'd like them to be. So maybe let us know. Would you like us to put some kind of cellophane across the door and just trick Ian into walking into it?
Or actually,
No.
Would that be YouTube fodder?
Didn't you want to see
No.
Did you want to see my video?
What video?
I'd much rather watch Dustin dig a hole for his pole.
Oh wow. I'll tell you what. On that bombshell,
Let's.
I'm gonna cut it here, people. But Alyssa, do you mind reminding the lovely listeners? Oh my god,
What's going on?
It's still
here?
working. It's still working.
that's what you meant by video.
Wait,
Sorry for everyone listening. Ian has he's got a Zoom background where it's like him in the background, and it's terrifying. It looks like a poltergeist
It
or
is
something.
terrifying.
It's really, really scary.
it was like the multiverse is overlapping.
Alyssa, do you mind reminding the lovely listeners where to find you on Instagram?
Yeah, so you can find me at Panda Bears, like the cute little animal. Panda Bears by Alyssa, and my name is spelled Alyssa.
Panda Bears by Alyssa. Cool. And we've shouted people out before on this show. I used to do a thing called Make Them Smile Monday, where I was like, go blow up someone's comment section. I really want everyone to pause what they're doing and go do this for Alyssa. It's not going to be much of a surprise because she sat here listening to me say this, but I still like everyone to do it. And if you listen to the previous episode, we really admire your positivity and fortitude, and you've been such a joy to chat with today. You would never guess that you're kind of dealing with so much by the way of family and health stuff. So if there was ever a good opportunity to go support someone's work, Panda Bears by Alyssa, go blow up her comments and DMs and show her some love, please, listeners. But yeah, Alyssa, thanks so much for joining us. You're awesome. Please keep in touch and reach out anytime.
Will do. Thank you.
And I hope you'll keep listening to the show and not be scarred for life after this experience.
Traumatized.
All right. We'll see everyone next week. Thank you again, Alyssa.
See you
Bye
later.
from us.
Bye.
Thanks so much for listening to this week's episode. As always, you can find full show notes over at honestdesigners.com or find us over on iTunes and now Spotify by searching for The Honest Designers Show. And remember, we're now on social media too, if you search for Honest Designers. If today's episode helped you, then it would mean the world to us if you took just a moment to leave us a quick review over on iTunes, as this is one of the best ways for other designers to discover the show. Thanks again for tuning in, and we will see you next week right here on The Honest Designers Show.